here. But I'll pretty much just go through creating a new setup, just do a little bit of a mock run through of how we use it, and go from there. Let you ask any questions. If there's anything that you want to ask, feel free to just interrupt me or just step in. So from here, I would create my new sheet, and automatically it asks for our employee's name. By selecting my own name as we go into the sheet, it already saves the information, so we know who put together this information if we have questions or concerns. We have a list of the part numbers that we do. So this is one that we'll put into here, and then we split the parts through operations. So I'm going to be working on the harnage quest here, and in terms of, I know one of the big functionalities Ian was telling me about was cascading. So we do the cascading starting right from scratch for the machine and the turret. So like I said, I'm going to be working on a harnage quest. So I'll select that machine. And we have two different turret models. We have BMT 45s and VDI 30s. So we're going to go with the VDI 30s. And cycle time, we can just throw in a number there. Program, that's our DNC program numbers. So it'll be linked to the lathe program 1, 2, 3, 4. And then material, we select what material the job is being done on. From here, we have some needed machine options. So some of our machines are equipped with different things. So we want to know what needs to be on the machine before it can get set up. So for this specific job, we would want a sub spindle. We would want some sort of live tooling, possibly even Y-axis, depending on the part we're working on, with either an arm picker or a basket. Doesn't really matter. And then we would start out on the main side. So when you select the main side, it has all of your work holding material up here on the top. So we're going to edit the work holding material. Are we using a chuck or collet system? We're using a 25C collet system. We want them to set the hydraulics at 400 PSI. And we're using a 2 3/4 or 2 1/4 collet size. And I want this to be serrated. So I'll select my serrated option, and I'm going to want a round collet. And from there, I can save the changes, and it saves up here. And that'll also be viewable on the printable copy, which we'll get to that once I wrap up the sheet. But the first thing I do is we're going to do a bump. So after I select bump, I have the system automatically recognize what the bump means in the operation description, so I can then set my bump size to what I need it to be. And to do the bump, we usually just use the face of one of our tool blocks, or we'll put a piece of copper or something in there if needed. But we just use the tool block to bump the bar stock into place, and then it doesn't require a tool holder or tooling. So I'm just going to select those off, and then I'd move on to my first tool. So first tool would be roughing. One of the cool things that we've implemented is like a dictionary. So I'm going to do a rough face and turn. And we kind of like a little bit of consistency with our setup at. So as you see with the rough and the I type those in, but we have it auto change to the abbreviations that we found works best for us. So all of our setup sheets kind of read the same, and it's easier for people to understand. Put my tool offsets, and then for the rough, I'd be going into here. This is all the VDI 30 tooling. We're going to be doing some OD working. We're going to be on the main spindle. I want to use the 3/4 tool, so I would select that tool block. Then going into the tool holder. Now the setup app only is going to show me 3/4 tooling. So I'm going to go to OD roughing. And it just shows me the 3/4 tools that fit into this tool block. So I'm going to choose the left hand. And then going into the insert for the tooling for the tool holder, I select that. And then these are all the inserts that can fit inside of that toolbar. So then I can go ahead and select my insert. As you see, we have usage pasted onto them. So some of the newer guys or the people setting up, if they don't know what to use, they can see what some of the higher used tooling is.
So that's the number of places that's used.
Yeah, that's the amount of times it's used in the setup app for that. That's how many times it's used in sheets. So we have sheets where that QRN is being called out or tooling is called out, 1,065 times. I actually believe we have almost 2,000 setup sheets saved in this system here already. And also we like our notes because they can tell us specific things either on individual end lines or we have overall sheet notes. So for this one specifically, maybe I just say to have tool holder out 2 inches, just some generic note helping the setup guy set up, and that'll come into play later during the printed section. But right here, I'd be done with this tool. I would go ahead and I'd move on to finishing.
Jason, can I pause and put you on the spot? Is this all this is above my head. So is this making sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little overwhelming, but it's just the steps through it all that seem like a lot, but it's super thorough.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And yeah, that's one thing is it seems a little, overwhelming, but we've found that some of our guys actually, prefer a lot of this information when they're setting up.
Yeah, I
Versus
could
just,
definitely see
having a sheet of paper.
Right.
So
So the big thing is setting. I mean, the initial setup is you got to add tooling and how it all corresponds to each other. This stuff works for 3/4 inch, or how much is there of an existing library of tools that may work across systems, or is it all proprietary to each machine shop?
I would say I would assume that we would have to put our information in there for tools and inserts and stuff. Is that correct?
I would assume so. I don't know what machines you guys are working with, but obviously some are going to have different tool blocks that receive different tool holders and stuff.
Yeah,
but I would
I
assume
just
that
wasn't
would
sure
all
if there
be
was a
around general.
library like to pick from when we're building that out, or if like some of the pictures that you have in there were those all pictures that you guys added, or
Yeah, so we also use the tool crib. We like to know a lot about our tools. So like here for the OD roughing holder, there's a lot of parts in the tool. So we actually have like all of the set screws and shims and clamps and stuff all linked through the tool crib with the pictures. I know Ian talked about, you guys were really looking at the setup app. But
that's where the discussion started. And I guess, did I hear correctly? Was it Camco Manufacturing?
yes, yep.
Okay. Yeah, and I when I went to your website right off the bat, I see an impeller on there, which is pretty cool. Just the multi-axis, like it. I mean, our impellers are not that complex, but it's just interesting to see the first thing on the page is an impeller.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's more of an aside, but I see you guys have a lot of machines So I gather that, I mean, that's where you're really trying to keep things organized and, yeah.
Yep, and
Okay.
and like you said, we have a couple different types of machines, so that's why this works great for us because we're able to kind of cascade down, and we don't have our setup guys looking through the hundreds of different tools that they could possibly use, but might not work with the machine or blocks that they're working on currently. So definitely kind of reduces the amount of information that they have to look through to create a good setup sheet. But with the finisher, it's pretty much the same. I'll use the left-hand tool block. I'll go in here, and instead of going to the roughing, I'll go over to the finisher, and it works the same way. I'll select my 3/4 finisher, and then go to the inserts. And again, it'll just show the inserts that fit into this tool now. One of the cool things is, let's say maybe you get a new custom tool in that possibly isn't in whatever system that's holding your information, and you can just add. So maybe I just say, new tool, and then maybe I just put the manufacturing number if I know that, just so later on it can get updated.
So I see a camera icon there too.
Yeah. Yep, I'm actually on my personal PC, so I don't have a camera attached right now, but
Okay.
we have it. So our guys would have to take a picture of the tool, so we have a little bit more information about it, and it's not just whatever they write here for the notes. So
So
I won't be able to save it. But
do they use a tablet or a phone, or how does that work?
yeah, let me pull up some pictures. Actually, so I had some pictures prepared because we use two different things. So on some of our older tool benches, we have these mobile
really quick.
computers.
You're sharing the browser.
Okay, so you guys
Yep.
can't see. Let me just try to switch over to screen then.
How many different stations do you have this set up at?
So can you guys see this picture now?
Yep.
Yeah, so we have about 15 of these mobile stations here. So as the job is running, the station doesn't have to stay there at the machine because the app also creates printable copies for the operator running it. So if an insert goes bad, they know exactly which one to use and replace it with. But for most of the time, these are just hovering around the shop, going back and forth to different machines as they get set up.
So where you got a battery pack on that?
So it plugs in, but it does have a small battery pack just in case electricity goes out or whatnot. But our machines have, plugs in them so that there's something always available for them to plug into.
Gotcha. But it's small battery pack, so you don't have to shut down the computer as you're moving it from station to station.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Are your guys at each station, is it on them to update this information in the
Yes.
setup?
Yep. So we still, run jobs that are maybe done still on our paper copies that we don't have into the system for right now. So if they run across that, they will print out all of their old information and enter it into the system as they're setting the job up. Sometimes the tooling changes, so they'll make those updates as needed. But if a sheet is already in the system and they're setting up the job, they bring the computer up, pull it up, and they use all of the information on the app to get to set up the job. And if nothing changes, then they won't make any sort of updates. But there's there's always a chance something changes.
Okay, so this is kind of like a very generalized question, and I know there's lots of variables that can change it, but let's say you're going to a job that is old school, you just have a paper printout, have never set it up on this app, and at the station they're putting it in the app. I mean, is that fairly efficient, or what kind of, you know what I mean? What kind of time goes into that, and how much does that time vary with each individual? You know, because I've got some guys that really thrive in this stuff, and then some that hardly even try. You know.
Yep. Yeah, I will tell you, one of the things is we have found that at first our guys kind of gave pushback using a system like this,
Mm-hmm.
but as soon as they saw how much easier it was to set up the jobs, we haven't had to fight it at all.
Yeah.
Right, because at the end of the day, they've noticed it's making their job easier. Because the issue with the paper copies that we ran into is if you're just doing handwriting or typing into Excel, a lot of the information sometimes can be misrepresented, or the ink gets wiped,
Yep.
and so you don't know the numbers, and then now they're having to come up with the brand new tooling to run the job again, or
Not
figure out
only
what
that, but
insert.
what I'm seeing is the thoroughness of the handwritten stuff and the attention to detail varies so much that you got a guy that's super anal about having everything documented, and then he goes to the next machine that's somebody that just doesn't pay attention to all the little details, and it's not real efficient.
Yep, and that's what we ran into too. Exactly like what you said. Our setup sheets are a lot more. We put a lot of limits on it, to where we don't allow the sheets to be saved and finished until certain things are done, and that's kind of like a soft lock, or force people to do certain things that they might shortcut on their own. But if they're not able to finish their job, then they're going to eventually start doing them.
Yeah.
That's what Camco has done to really bring our setup sheets to be more uniform, and anybody can pick them up and use them just like they would their own setup sheet. We put a lot of locks and places in place to where they have to complete the setup sheet thoroughly. You can even see here I have a little sheet issue counter up here that tells me how many places information isn't filled out in the sheet. Um, and one of them being the part picture. But yeah, that's what we like to do, is limit what information they have to put in before they can save the setup sheet. That way, all of the information is being captured and utilized correctly.
So is there a lot of legwork that goes into preparing this to specific to your shop and operators, or not, I guess not operators, but more so to the shop, like the tools that are available for the guys? So when it gets out to the guys and they're making a new sheet, they're just picking from options that are set up within your shop, or are they, you know what I mean? If we have a new turning tool that goes out to a machine that's a different configuration, is that something that like a manager would, an app manager on site would put in there for the guys to select from, or do you guys have them enter new stuff in like that? Is that easy enough? Do you understand my question?
Yep, I understand your question. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how your guys's tooling's going to be held or stored, but what we do is if new tooling comes in, we have our tool crib handle that type of stuff. But it really just depends on what information you want from the tooling.
So
We
who enters
strive
that
over
data into Tool
information.
Crib then?
We have data entry people. So pretty much we give them the manufacturer and the manufacturer part number, and they go to that website of the vendor and they pull all of the information that we want them to for that tool and enter it in for us.
And Ian, is this a picture from Tool Crib or is this still in the setup sheet?
This is a picture from the tool crib. So, like I said before, Camco Manufacturing has the tool crib and the setup sheet. So, and that's kind of unique to them because they have a dedicated tool crib with attendants that, like Camden mentioned, pulls this information and puts it in for them. You guys would have a slightly more stripped down version of this because, as I mentioned to you, I think last meeting, the tool crib has things like Kanbaning and a whole bunch of other like managerial stuff that it includes that, from what I understood from our last meeting, you guys aren't really looking for. So you would have a screen similar to this where you would add the tooling information, but it would just be this information here.
Okay. And then going back to the workstations, did you say there's a camera at those workstations, or how do they get the picture in there?
Yes, we have just small USB cameras that we have go around to each workstation. We've just modified them to have a magnetic base on them, so the operators can stick it to pretty much anywhere in the machine to take photos.
Gotcha.
Um, so this is our mobile setup. We're moving into more of a stationary setup. So this is one of our finished workbenches we've been working on, and we're actually gonna, because of the app, stick a computer on every single machine. So that way, there's no more moving around computers and stuff. But I just kind of wanted to show you the two ways we use the app at the machines. Is we have some where it's stationary, but other than that, we have these mobile computers.
Yeah.
Um, and I'll just show you quickly. If we wanted to add a drill or something. So I would, select one of the live tooling blocks, or for this one, because I'm in a lathe, I can just select a ID tool holder that accepts ER25 collets. And since I select that tool, now for tool holders, I get the option to select the ER25 collets. And then I can go in and I can select the drill I want. We also, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with moose stops. They're pretty much just mandatory stops in the machines, so we can check certain things. So maybe I want to enter a move stop to just check the OD or check the ID. Special notes. Make sure there's no taper. And then, we can do some sort of transfer to subspindle. And then from there, the subspindle, works pretty much the same way. We have all new subspindle information we can put on there depending on what collet or chuck you need to, probably not chuck, what collet you would need to grab whatever finished OD on the machine. And you can put all that information there too. Want it to be high again, and maybe we're going down to an inch. And I want it to be a smooth collet now because it's going to be a finished surface. So now my subspindle has all of its information, and maybe I'm just roughing that side and turning it. I'm sure you see all of these red little lines around the cells. This is what I was talking about we want everything to be filled out, so we make it visual for the guys on the floor to know what they haven't filled out yet. Just something small. And still using a VDI, but now I'm going to need a subspindle tool block. I'm still going to use rougher, but I want to make sure I'm using my right hand. And then again, anything that's linked to that tool holder, I just pull the inserts. Maybe I select the wrong insert. I just select change and I can go to a different one and it populates it there. Special note, make sure part ejects into basket. I'll add my part injector here, and then I would just put the numbers of the tools that would be specific for this ejector job. These are the QRN numbers that I've been referencing. That's how we keep track of our tools by a number base in the tool crib, but that's what I would do for the injector here. And then once I'm finished, I'll just save the setup sheet. The sheet's saved, and as you see it populated right up here into our 25 most recent. I'm gonna go into the view now. And in the view, I can't edit. So if someone's just using the sheet to set up and they're not gonna have to make any changes or want to print out the sheet, they'll go into view. And from here, I can print the sheet. We have a detailed setup sheet where it pretty much lists out each individual end line as its entire sheet, but the main one we use is just a 1-page printed sheet, and it takes all that information we entered and it makes a nice PDF copy. So as you see here, I made a note on that N1 to have the tool holder sticking out information, and we have it labeled there. And then I made a note here for the entire job to make sure part ejects in the basket. But it's pretty much collecting all that information. And it shows you what tool holder you're using and what the tooling is. So, these are wearable items here. So as the operator is running it and an insert breaks or is starting to wear, then they can replace it with the appropriate tool.